A rope burns through flesh. A woman screams. Rocks blur past at killing speed. 1 second from death, Evelyn Harper closes her eyes. Then a gunshot cracks the mountain air and changes everything. This is the story of a schoolteacher who refused to stay silent, a drifter running from his past, and the single bullet that bound their fates together in 1876 Colorado. What began with violence became something no one expected. Not the town, not the outlaws hunting her, and definitely not the lonely cowboy who couldn't walk away. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The dust tasted like copper and fear. Evelyn Harper's shoulder slammed against hard-packed earth for the third time, ribs screaming, and she knew with absolute clarity that she was about to die on a Tuesday. The rope binding her wrist to the saddle horn burned deeper with every lurch of the panicked horse, her body ragdolling behind the animal like broken cargo. Blood filled her mouth. The Colorado sun hammered down merciless and bright. She'd known this might happen, known it the moment she stood up in that courtroom 3 days ago. The horse shrieked and veered left. Evelyn's hip cracked against a rock outcropping and white light exploded behind her eyes. Her dress, the nice blue one she'd worn specifically because she thought it made her look credible, was shredded to rags. Skin peeled from her forearms in long strips. She tried to scream, but her lungs couldn't catch enough air between impacts. Somewhere behind the drumming hoofbeats and her own ragged breathing, men were shouting, maybe laughing, hard to tell anymore. "This is what speaking up gets you," a small voice whispered in the back of her mind. "This is what happens when a 22-year-old schoolteacher thinks she can stand against men who own half the territory." Evelyn had exactly one coherent thought left. She refused to give them the satisfaction of begging. The mining road curved ahead, following the creek bed toward town. If the horse stayed this course, she'd be dragged straight through the center of Sullivan's Bend, where everyone could see what happened to women who testified against company men. If it veered right toward the canyon trail, her skull bounced off a root. Everything went sideways. When her vision cleared half a second later, she saw it. 20 yards ahead, maybe less. A boulder the size of a hay wagon sitting square in the middle of the trail, and the horse was running straight for it at full gallop. No time to dodge. No time to... Evelyn stopped fighting the rope, stopped trying to protect her head. She just closed her eyes and thought about her students, hoped someone kind would tell them she'd tried. Then the world cracked open. The gunshot wasn't loud so much as impossibly sharp, like reality itself splitting down the middle. The rope went slack. Evelyn's body separated from the horse in a tumbling arc of momentum and terror, flying free through empty air, and slammed into something that wasn't rock. Arms locked around her, heavy, human. The impact drove them both sideways into the dust, rolling hard. She felt ribs, not hers, crack on landing, heard a man's grunt of pain bitten off fast. Then they stopped moving, and there was just the sound of two people trying to breathe. Evelyn opened her eyes. A stranger's face hovered inches from hers, all hard angles and sun-weathered skin, and eyes the color of winter sky. Dust covered his dark hair, blood ran from a cut above his eyebrow, and he was looking at her with an expression she couldn't immediately read. Surprise, maybe? Or something rawer than that. "You hit?" His voice came rough, like he didn't use it often. Evelyn tried to answer, but her throat wouldn't cooperate. She managed a shake of her head that might have been a lie. Everything hurt. Everything. The man nodded once, then carefully, so carefully it made her chest ache for reasons that had nothing to do with injuries. He shifted his weight off her and sat up. His left hand stayed braced against her shoulder, steadying. His right hand held a revolver that was still smoking. "Don't move yet," he said. "Let's figure out what's broken first." Behind them, the runaway horse had finally stopped 50 yards up the trail, sides heaving, reins dragging in the dirt. Men on horseback were thundering closer now, their shouts turning from cruel amusement to something more uncertain. The stranger's jaw tightened. He didn't look at the approaching riders. He looked at Evelyn's wrists instead, at the raw burns where the rope had eaten through skin down to muscle, and his face went very still. "Who did this?" It wasn't really a question, more like a promise wearing question-shaped words. "Kane," Evelyn managed. Her voice sounded like gravel. "Rufus Kane. He..." She coughed, tasted more blood. He said it was a message from the company about the trial. The stranger's eyes lifted to hers for one long second. Then he stood in a single fluid motion that shouldn't have been possible for someone who just cracked ribs saving a stranger's life, and turned to face the oncoming riders. There were 4 of them. Company men by the look of their gear, too well-fed and well-armed to be regular ranch hands. The one in front, a thick-necked man with a silver watch chain, pulled his horse up short when he saw the stranger standing there with the revolver still in his hand. "That's company property you're interfering with, friend." Silverwatch had a politician's voice, smooth and certain. "The woman's under citizen's arrest for She's got rope burns down to bone," the stranger said quietly. "She's bleeding from her head, and you're about to tell me that's legal?" "She testified against Rufus Kane," another rider said. Younger, meaner looking. "Made him look bad in front of the judge. Mr. Holloway don't appreciate—" "I don't care what Holloway appreciates." The stranger's voice never got louder. Didn't need to. "You boys can ride back to town and send the doctor. Or you can make this complicated. Your choice takes about 3 seconds. Silverwatch's hand drifted toward his hip. The stranger's revolver came up so fast Evelyn almost missed it. Just a flicker of movement, and suddenly the barrel was level with the rider's chest, hammer already cocked. "That's 1 second, the stranger said. Nobody moved. Somewhere in the distance, a crow called. The creek bubbled over stones. Evelyn's heartbeat hammered in her ears so loud she thought everyone must hear it. Then Silverwatch's hand moved away from his gun, real slow, palms up. "Easy now," he said. "No need for 2 seconds. We're going." Silverwatch jerked his head at the other riders. "Let's move." They turned their horses and rode back toward town at a canter that tried real hard to look casual and failed. The stranger watched until they disappeared around the bend, then lowered the revolver and turned back to Evelyn. She'd managed to push herself up on one elbow. Her whole body shook like a leaf in high wind, but she was damned if she'd lie there helpless while strange men decided her fate. "You always this stubborn?" The stranger crouched beside her again, tucking the revolver into his belt. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd first thought. Maybe 30, maybe less. Hard-living, aged people fast out here. "Usually more," Evelyn said. "I'm having an off day." Something that might have been a smile touched the corner of his mouth and disappeared. "We need to get you to a doctor. Can you ride?" Evelyn looked at her wrists, looked at the blood soaking through her torn dress, felt the way her left leg wouldn't quite take weight when she tried to move it. "No," she admitted. It cost her to say it. The stranger nodded like he'd expected that answer. Without asking permission, probably figured she'd argue, he scooped her up in his arms. Evelyn made a sound that was half protest and half pain, but he was already moving toward his horse, a big roan gelding standing quiet where he'd left it ground-tied 20 yards back. "What's your name?" Evelyn asked. Partly because she wanted to know, partly because talking kept her from passing out. "Cole Bennett." "Evelyn Harper." "I know." He shifted her weight carefully as he grabbed the saddle horn with his free hand. "Whole town's been talking about the schoolteacher who stood up to Kane in court. Some folks think you're brave, others think you're crazy. What do you think?" Cole pulled himself into the saddle one-handed, settling Evelyn across his lap. The movement sent fresh waves of pain through her ribs, but his arms were steady around her, solid. "I think," he said slowly, like he was working out the answer himself, "that brave and crazy probably look real similar from the outside." He kicked the horse into a walk, keeping it smooth and easy. Evelyn's head rested against his chest because she didn't have the strength to hold it up anymore. She could hear his heartbeat through his shirt, steady and strong, and smell horse sweat and gun oil and something else. Soap, maybe, or just clean air. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the shot, for catching me, for—" "Don't." Cole's voice had gone rough again. "Don't thank me for basic human decency. That's a low bar." They rode in silence for a while. The sun beat down. Evelyn's injuries throbbed in time with the horse's gait. She drifted in and out of consciousness, jerking awake every time her body tried to slip sideways. "Stay with me," Cole said the third time it happened. Not an order, almost a request. "Town's still 20 minutes out. Need you awake." "Trying." "Tell me about the trial. Keep talking." Evelyn forced her eyes open, focused on the horse's black mane, the way it lifted and fell with each step. "There's a girl," she started. 16 years old, works at the general store. Kane and his men." She swallowed hard. "They hurt her. She was afraid to tell anyone, but she told me because I'm her teacher and she thought—" Her voice cracked. "She thought I could help." Cole's arms tightened fractionally around her. "I convinced her to testify," Evelyn continued. "Promised I'd testify too, that we'd do it together. The judge actually listened. Actually seemed like he might rule against Kane for once. And the mining company—" She laughed, but it came out bitter. "They sent a message. Kane got to me before the verdict came in. The girl? Safe. Her family sent her to Denver the night after she testified. Smart move." "Brave girl," Cole said. "Terrified girl," Evelyn corrected. "Who did the right thing anyway? That's what bravery is. Being scared and doing it anyway." Cole didn't answer that, but she felt something shift in the way he held her. More careful, maybe. Or just more present. They crested a low ridge and Sullivan's Bend came into view below. A scatter of buildings clinging to the hillside where silver veins ran rich through the mountain rock. The main street crawled with afternoon traffic, miners changing shifts, freight wagons hauling ore. Women with baskets heading home from the market. Normal life. While she'd been dying on that road, the world had just kept spinning. "They're gonna stare," Cole said quietly. "Whole town's gonna know what happened before we make it halfway down Main Street. You ready for that?" Evelyn thought about it, about riding through town broken and bloody in a stranger's arms, about the whispers that would follow, about standing in front of her classroom tomorrow, or the next day, with visible proof that speaking up got you dragged behind a horse. "No," she said honestly, "but let them stare. Let them see what the company does to women who won't stay quiet." Cole made a sound that might have been approval. "You are crazy," he said. But he smiled when he said it, just a little. They rode down into town. Dr. Hendricks had a small practice above the general store, reached by an outside staircase that was definitely not designed for a man carrying an injured woman. Cole managed anyway, ignoring the protests from his cracked ribs while a crowd gathered below like vultures circling a kill. The doctor, a gray-haired man with steady hands and tired eyes, took one look at Evelyn and started barking orders. "Clear the table, boil water, someone get the sheriff. Already here." Walter Briggs pushed through the doorway, a big man going soft around the middle but still sharp in the eyes. He took in Evelyn's condition and his face went hard. "Who?" "Kane," Cole said. He laid Evelyn on the cleared table as gently as he could. She bit back a scream and almost succeeded. Tied her to a horse and let it run. 4 company men were watching it happen up on Canyon Road. Briggs's hand went to his gun belt, not drawing, just resting there. Old habit. "You got names." One wore a silver watch chain. Another was young, maybe 25, scar on his left cheek. "Morrison and Pike." Briggs looked at the doctor. "How bad?" Hendricks was cutting away what was left of Evelyn's dress, exposing the full damage. The room went very quiet. "Broken ribs," the doctor said after a moment. "Maybe internal bleeding, concussion for sure. These burns," he gestured at her wrists, "need to be cleaned and dressed immediately or they'll get infected. Could lose the hands." "You won't," Evelyn said. Her voice came out thready but firm. "I still have tests to grade." Hendricks looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Then he smiled, just barely. "Stubborn? Good. You'll need that." He glanced at Cole and Briggs. "Out. Both of you. I need room to work." Cole hesitated. He'd carried this woman for 3 miles, felt every labored breath, every moment of pain. Walking away now felt wrong somehow. Evelyn's eyes found his. "Thank you," she said again, meaning it deeper this time. Cole nodded once and left. The sheriff's office sat at the far end of Main Street, a stone building that stayed cool even in summer heat. Briggs poured 2 whiskeys without asking and pushed one across the desk. "Drink," he said. "Then tell me everything." Cole did, all of it. The shot, the catch, the company men, the conversation. Briggs listened without interrupting, his face getting harder with each detail. "You broke Morrison's pride in front of witnesses," Briggs said when Cole finished. "Company won't like that." "Don't much care what the company likes." "You should." Briggs leaned back in his chair, studying Cole with the careful attention of a man who'd spent 30 years reading people. "You're new in town, drifter, by the look of you. No family, no ties. Easy target. I can handle myself." "I saw what you can handle." Briggs nodded at Cole's revolver. "That shot, cutting the rope at full gallop without hitting the woman? I've seen a lot of men shoot. Never seen that." Cole said nothing. "Military?" Briggs pressed. "No." "Lawman?" "No." "Hired gun?" "No." Cole's voice went flat. "I worked ranches, learned to shoot because you need to out here. That's all." It wasn't all, but Briggs let it slide. He pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. "I'm issuing a warrant for Kane's arrest, attempted murder, and I'm bringing in Morrison and Pike for questioning. They'll lawyer up, company will protect them. Probably." Briggs's smile had no humor in it. "But I'll make them sweat first. And Kane's got no protection anymore. He crossed a line even the company can't ignore. He'll run." "I know, that's why I'm deputizing you." Cole blinked. "What?" "You heard me?" Briggs pushed a tin star across the desk. "Temporary deputy. $20 a week plus ammunition. You ride with the posse, help bring Kane in. I'm not a lawman." "You are now." Briggs's eyes were steel. "You saved that woman's life. You stood down 4 armed men without firing a shot. And you're the only person in this town who made the company back down today. I need you." Cole looked at the star, looked at Briggs, thought about Evelyn's eyes when she'd thanked him, the way her voice had stayed steady even when her body was broken. "Not your fight," part of him whispered. "You came here for ranch work. Keep your head down. Move on in a few months, like always." But another part, the part that hadn't felt anything in years except tired, remembered what it was like to matter, to stand for something. He picked up the star. $20 a week, he said. "And I want to check on Miss Harper. Make sure she's healing." Briggs's smile turned genuine. "Deal." 3 days passed. Evelyn woke up in a boarding house room that smelled like carbolic acid and old wood. Sunlight streamed through thin curtains. Every part of her body hurt in new and creative ways, but she was alive and her hands still worked, which felt like a miracle. Mrs. Chen, who ran the boarding house, appeared with breakfast, thin soup and soft bread that Evelyn could actually swallow. "You had visitors," Mrs. Chen said, settling the tray across Evelyn's lap. "Doctor came twice. Sheriff came once. And that cowboy who saved you. He comes every evening, just sits outside your door for an hour, making sure you're safe." Evelyn's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. "Every evening?" "Every single one." Mrs. Chen's eyes crinkled. "Doesn't say much, just sits and listens, then leaves when the sun goes down." Evelyn didn't know what to do with that information. By the 4th day, she could sit up without help. By the 5th, she could walk to the window, though it took 20 minutes and left her shaking. The view looked out over Main Street where normal life continued. Miners heading to work, children playing in the dust, freight wagons rolling past. She watched a familiar figure cross the street below. Tall, dark-haired, moving with the kind of easy grace that came from years in the saddle. Cole Bennett, wearing a deputy's star now according to the gossip Mrs. Chen had shared. He glanced up at her window. Their eyes met. Evelyn raised one bandaged hand in a small wave. Cole touched the brim of his hat, then continued on his way. But she caught something in his expression before he turned. Relief, maybe. Or something softer. That evening, when Mrs. Chen brought dinner, she also brought a visitor. Cole stood in the doorway holding his hat, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the small feminine space of the boarding house room. He'd cleaned up since the rescue. Fresh shirt, shaved jaw. But his eyes were the same. That pale winter blue that seemed to see straight through pretense. "Miss Harper," he said formally. "Doctor says you're healing well." "Better than expected." Evelyn gestured at the chair beside her bed. "You can sit. You won't break me." Cole sat, perching on the edge like he might need to leave fast. Up close, Evelyn could see the healing cuts on his face from when he'd caught her, the careful way he held his left side where the ribs were still mending. "You're hurt," she said. "I'm fine. You cracked your ribs saving my life." "They'll heal." He looked at her wrists, still wrapped in clean bandages. "How's the pain?" "Manageable." It was a lie, and they both knew it. Thank you for checking on me. Mrs. Chen says you've been coming every evening. Cole's jaw tightened. Wanted to make sure you were safe. Kane's still out there. The sheriff thinks he ran to New Mexico. Maybe. Cole didn't sound convinced. Or maybe he's waiting. Men like Kane, they don't forget when someone makes them look weak. Evelyn studied him. You've known men like Kane before. It wasn't a question. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then, I've known a lot of men. Good ones and bad ones, and most that fell somewhere in between. Kane's different. He's the kind who'll burn down a whole town just to prove he can. That's why you took the deputy's star, to hunt him. Partly. What's the other part? Cole met her eyes directly. You stood up in that courtroom knowing what it might cost. Testified for a girl who couldn't protect herself. That takes... He struggled for the word. That takes something most people don't have. It takes desperation, Evelyn said quietly. That girl came to me crying, bruised, ashamed. I looked at her and I saw every woman who ever stayed quiet because speaking up was too dangerous. Her voice caught. I couldn't be one more adult who failed her. You didn't fail her. I nearly died. If you hadn't been there, but I was there. Cole leaned forward slightly. And you're alive. And that girl is safe in Denver. That's what matters. Evelyn felt something crack open in her chest, some tight knot of fear and guilt she'd been carrying since the attack. Tears came before she could stop them, hot and sudden. Cole went very still. Then, with the same careful gentleness he'd shown when carrying her bleeding body through the streets, he reached out and took her hand, the less damaged one, and just held it while she cried. I was so scared, Evelyn whispered. On that road, I thought I was going to die and no one would remember why, that it would all be for nothing. It wasn't for nothing, Cole said. His voice was rough again, thick with something he couldn't quite hide. And everyone will remember. You made the company bleed, made them show their real face. That matters. They sat like that for a while, Evelyn crying and Cole holding her hand until the tears ran out and the room grew dim with coming evening. I should go, Cole said finally, though he didn't let go of her hand yet. Let you rest. Will you come back? Evelyn asked. Then, bolder. I mean, not just to guard the door. Will you visit? Actually talk? Something shifted in Cole's expression. Surprise, maybe. Or hope. If you want me to. I do. The smile that touched his face was small but real, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Then I will. He stood, settling his hat back on his head. At the door he paused. Evelyn? Yes? That shot. The one that cut the rope. It was... He struggled for words. It was the most important shot I ever made, just so you know. Then he was gone, boot heels echoing down the hall, leaving Evelyn alone with her injuries and her racing heart and the strange, terrifying, wonderful knowledge that something had changed between them in the dust of Canyon Road. Something neither of them had been looking for. Something that felt an awful lot like the beginning of everything. The next morning, Sheriff Briggs kicked in the door of the Silver Pine Saloon where Rufus Kane was supposedly hiding in a back room. The room was empty, but the message scrawled on the wall in charcoal was clear enough. The schoolteacher dies screaming. Briggs sent word to Cole immediately. By noon, a posse was forming. And by sunset, Cole Bennett was riding into the mountains with death on his mind and a promise to keep, the one he'd made to himself on Canyon Road when he'd felt Evelyn's broken body in his arms and decided that some things were worth fighting for. Even if you were just a drifter with nothing but a horse and a gun. Even if the woman you were protecting barely knew your name. Even if wanting to stay somewhere felt more dangerous than any outlaw. The hunt for Rufus Kane was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. The mountains swallowed the posse whole by the second day. Cole rode near the front with Sheriff Briggs and 4 other men, all armed, all grim-faced, none of them talking much. The terrain had shifted from rocky meadows to narrow canyon passages where a single rifle shot could trap them all. Every shadow looked like an ambush. Every bird call made hands drift toward holsters. Kane's trail had gone cold near the old Morrison mine, a played-out silver shaft that honeycombed the hillside with unstable tunnels. Briggs called a halt while they watered the horses and discussed options, none of them good. He could be in Mexico by now, one of the deputies said. Young kid, maybe 19, trying hard not to show how scared he was. He's not in Mexico. Cole studied the ground near the mine entrance, reading sign the way his father had taught him years ago. Boot prints, maybe 2 days old. Cigarette ash. He's still here, watching us. How do you know? Because running would mean admitting he lost. Cole straightened, eyes scanning the ridgeline above. Men like Kane don't run. They dig in and wait for a chance to hit back. Briggs grunted agreement. We camp here tonight. Post double watches. If he's planning something, it'll be after dark. They set up in a defensible position near the creek, building a small fire for coffee, but nothing else. Cole took first watch, sitting with his back against a boulder and his rifle across his knees while the others tried to sleep. The stars came out hard and bright. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Cole thought about Evelyn back in town, probably awake too, staring at her ceiling and wondering if he'd keep his promise to come back alive. He'd made that promise standing beside her bed 5 days ago, her hand small and warm in his, her eyes still haunted by what Kane had done. She'd tried to hide her fear, but Cole had seen it anyway, the way it lived in the tight set of her shoulders and the careful way she moved, like her body didn't quite trust the world anymore. You're thinking about her. Cole didn't jump. He'd heard Briggs approach, despite the man's attempt at stealth. Just thinking, Cole said. Briggs settled down beside him with a groan, joints popping. Same thing. He pulled out a flask, took a swallow, offered it to Cole. You sweet on the schoolteacher? Cole considered lying, decided it wasn't worth the effort. Don't know her well enough to say. Bull, you know her plenty. Briggs tucked the flask away. Saved her life. Sat outside her door every night for a week. Pinned on a badge just to hunt the man who hurt her. That's not nothing. It's complicated. It always is. Briggs was quiet for a moment. You ever been married, Bennett? Once. The word came out flat. Cole didn't elaborate. Well, what happened? She died. Cole's jaw tightened. Fever. 3 years back. We were living in Kansas, working a small farm. 1 week she was fine. The next... He stopped, swallowed hard. Doctors couldn't do anything. I watched her burn up from the inside and couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. Briggs didn't offer empty condolences, just nodded like he understood. That why you've been drifting? Seemed easier than staying still. Staying still meant remembering. Cole shifted his rifle. Been moving ranch to ranch ever since. Work a season, move on, don't get attached. Until now. Cole didn't answer that. Listen, Briggs said quietly. I've seen a lot of people come through this town, most of them running from something or chasing something they'll never catch. But you, he shook his head, you got the look of a man who's tired of running. And that woman back there, she's got the look of someone who needs a reason to believe the world ain't completely rotten. I'm not what she needs. Maybe let her decide that. Briggs stood with another groan. Get some sleep. I'll take the rest of your watch. I'm fine. That wasn't a suggestion, Deputy. Sleep. Cole wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. He found a patch of ground away from the fire and lay down with his hat over his face, the revolver within easy reach. He dreamed about Sarah, his dead wife, about the farm in Kansas and the way she used to sing while doing laundry, slightly off-key, but happy. In the dream, she turned around, and it wasn't Sarah anymore. It was Evelyn, blood streaming from rope burns, asking why he'd let her fall. He woke gasping just before dawn, covered in cold sweat. They found Kane's camp an hour after sunrise, or what was left of it. A cold fire pit, some scattered supplies, and horse tracks heading deeper into the canyon. The outlaw was staying ahead of them, but just barely. He's toying with us, one of the deputies muttered. No. Cole examined the tracks more closely. He's desperate. Look at the spacing. The horse is tired, stumbling. He's running out of options. Briggs studied the canyon ahead. There's only one way through from here, the Narrows. If we push hard, we can catch him before he clears the pass. Or he's waiting to ambush us in the Narrows, Cole said. Perfect kill zone. So what do you suggest? Cole thought for a minute, weighing options. Split up. 2 men go through the canyon, make noise, draw his attention. The rest of us circle around on foot, come at him from above. That puts 2 men in the line of fire. I'll be one of them. Cole met Briggs's eyes. and you pick the other. Someone steady. Briggs didn't like it, but he couldn't argue with the logic. They worked out the details quickly, assigned positions. Cole would ride through with Deputy Martinez, a solidly built man in his 40s who'd fought in the war and didn't rattle easy. The others would climb. 20 minutes later, Cole and Martinez entered the Narrows. The canyon walls rose steep on both sides, barely wide enough for two horses. Water trickled down the rocks, making everything slick. Their horses' hooves echoed loud in the confined space. "I don't like this," Martinez muttered. "Neither do I. Keep talking. Make us sound relaxed." "Relaxed. Right." Martinez tried for casual conversation, but it came out wooden. "So you really shot that rope at full gallop while the woman was getting dragged?" "Yeah." "How the hell—" "Oh!" The rifle shot cracked from above, exactly where Cole had expected it. The bullet sparked off rock 3 feet to Martinez's left. A warning shot, or a miss, hard to say. Both men yanked their horses around, diving for the minimal cover of a rock overhang, while bullets started coming in earnest. Kane was shooting from a ledge about 40 feet up, partially hidden behind boulders. Good position, hard to hit from below. Cole returned fire, not trying to hit Kane. Just keep him focused down into the canyon. Above and behind the outlaw's position, he caught a flicker of movement. Briggs and the others getting into position. "Come on down, Kane," Martinez shouted. "You're surrounded." Kane's laugh echoed off the rocks. "Surrounded by idiots, maybe? You think I don't know what you're doing?" More shots rang out. One of them caught Martinez's horse in the shoulder, and the animal screamed and went down. Martinez rolled clear, came up cursing, rifle ready. "You killed my horse, you son of a—" "Should have killed you!" Kane's voice had a manic edge now. "Should have finished the schoolteacher when I had the chance. Should have dragged her until there was nothing left." Cole's finger tightened on the trigger. He forced himself to breathe, to wait. Briggs needed time to get close enough. "Why'd you do it, Kane?" Cole called out, keeping his voice level. "The girl testified, not Evelyn Harper. Why go after the teacher?" "Because she convinced the girl to talk," Kane fired again, wild. "Because she stood up there in court and called me a coward. Me. I've killed men from here to Santa Fe, and she—" His voice cut off as Briggs appeared on the ledge behind him, rifle aimed at Kane's back. "Drop it, Rufus." Kane spun, bringing his rifle around. Everything happened fast. Briggs fired, but Kane was already moving, the bullet catching him in the shoulder instead of center mass. Kane stumbled, fell, his rifle clattering away across the rocks. He scrambled for it on his knees, blood streaming from the wound. Cole had a clear shot, easy as breathing. One bullet and Kane would never hurt anyone again. His finger rested on the trigger. He thought about Evelyn's wrists, about the girl in Denver who'd never feel safe again, about Sarah dying in that Kansas farmhouse while he'd held her hand and been completely, utterly helpless. Kane's fingers closed around his rifle. Cole shot it out of his hand. The bullet took the weapon dead center, sent it spinning off the ledge to clatter into the canyon below. Kane screamed and grabbed his mangled fingers, and then Briggs was on him, forcing him face down against the rock, while the other deputies rushed in. Martinez looked at Cole with something like awe. "You could have killed him." "Yeah. Why didn't you?" Cole didn't have a good answer for that. Or maybe he did, but it was complicated. Something about not wanting to see that look in Evelyn's eyes when he rode back. The knowledge that he'd killed a man, even one who deserved it. Something about being tired of death. "Because he needs to stand trial," Cole said finally. "Face what he did in court, same as the girl had to." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough. They got Kane patched up enough to ride, roughly, without much sympathy, and started the long journey back to town. The outlaw kept quiet mostly, except for occasional mutters about revenge and threats that sounded increasingly hollow as the miles wore on. By the time Sullivan's Bend came into view, word had already spread. Half the town lined the main street, watching as the posse rode in with their prisoner in chains. Cole spotted Evelyn immediately. She stood on the boarding house porch, one hand gripping the rail for support, her face pale but determined. She'd dressed carefully, a clean dress, hair pinned up proper, like she was making a point about not being defeated. The bandages were gone from her wrists, but the scars remained, visible even from a distance. Their eyes met across the crowded street. Cole saw relief there. And something else. something that made his chest tight. He dismounted and started toward her, vaguely aware of Briggs handling Kane, of the crowd's murmurs, of the world continuing around them. But all of it faded to background noise as he climbed the boarding house steps. Evelyn didn't wait for him to speak. She just stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, careful of his injuries, holding on like she'd been afraid she'd never get the chance. Cole froze for half a second, then his arms came up and held her back. "You kept your promise," Evelyn said against his shoulder. "Yeah." "Thank you." They stayed like that for a long moment, ignoring the whispers and stares, until Evelyn pulled back enough to look at him properly. Her hands stayed on his arms. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Don't lie." Cole's mouth twitched. "Bruised, nothing serious." "Good." Evelyn's grip tightened. "Because I need you to do me a favor." "What kind of favor?" Come back tomorrow evening for dinner. Mrs. Chen makes pot roast on Thursdays, and there's always too much." Her eyes searched his. "Unless you don't want." "I want to," Cole said quickly. Too quickly, maybe, but he didn't care. "What time?" 6 o'clock. "I'll be here." Evelyn smiled, really smiled, and it changed her whole face. Made her look young and hopeful and like someone who might actually believe in second chances. Cole felt something shift inside his chest, some locked door creaking open after years of being shut tight. This was dangerous, this feeling, this wanting, but he couldn't seem to make himself care. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm that felt both strange and natural at the same time. Cole took a job at Blackstone Ranch, the biggest operation in the territory. The work was brutal. 14-hour days moving cattle, mending fence, breaking horses that wanted to kill you. The other ranch hands were a rough crew, all testing the new guy to see what he was made of. Cole passed their tests without trying. He could outride most of them, outwork all of them, and shoot better than anyone they'd ever seen. Within 2 weeks, the foreman offered him lead hand position. Cole turned it down. "Don't want the responsibility," he said. What he meant was, don't want to put down roots, don't want to get comfortable. But every evening after work, bone-tired and covered in dust, he rode the 6 miles back into town to sit on the boarding house porch with Evelyn. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him about her students, about growing up in Boston before heading west, about her parents who'd wanted her to marry safe and respectable instead of teaching in a mining town. He told her about ranch work, about the horses he'd known, about places he'd seen from Montana to Arizona. He didn't talk about Sarah much. Evelyn didn't push. The town noticed, of course. Small towns always noticed. The boarding house became the center of gossip. The schoolteacher and the cowboy, sitting proper and polite, but with something electric humming in the air between them. Mrs. Chen approved. She started making extra desserts on the nights Cole visited, leaving them on the porch table with a knowing smile before disappearing back inside. Not everyone was happy about it. "You're making a mistake." Evelyn looked up from grading papers to find Margaret Winters standing in her classroom doorway. Margaret was the banker's wife, pillar of the community, and appointed guardian of public morality. "Mrs. Winters," Evelyn kept her voice polite, "school's closed for the day." "I'm not here about school." Margaret swept into the room like she owned it. "I'm here about your reputation. This drifter you've been seeing, Cole Bennett, and I'm not seeing him. We're friends." Margaret's laugh was sharp. "Friends? Every evening on your porch until well past dark? People are talking, Evelyn. Let them talk. You're a school teacher. You're supposed to set an example for the children." Margaret leaned against a desk. This man showed up out of nowhere, pinned on a badge for a few weeks, and now he's a ranch hand. No family, no history, nothing permanent about him. "He saved my life. And you've thanked him, repeatedly, from what I hear." Margaret's eyes were hard. "But gratitude isn't a foundation for anything real. Men like that, they don't stay. And when he leaves, you'll be the one left behind, reputation damaged, prospects ruined." Evelyn set down her pen carefully. "I appreciate your concern, but my personal life is my own business." "Is it? You represent this school, this community. The board expects me to teach well, which I do. What I do in my own time, with whom I choose to spend it, is not the board's concern. Or yours." Margaret's face flushed. You're being foolish. This will end badly. Maybe. Evelyn stood, gathering her papers. But it's my choice to make. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this evening. She walked past Margaret with her head high, refusing to let the older woman see how the words had landed. Because part of what Margaret said was true, wasn't it? Cole was a drifter. He'd said so himself, always moving, never staying. What made Evelyn think she'd be different? But when she reached the boarding house and found Cole already there, sitting on the porch steps with his hat beside him, and a tired smile on his face, the doubts quieted down to background noise. "Long day?" he asked. "You could say that." Evelyn sat beside him, close enough their shoulders almost touched. "Margaret Winters paid me a visit." Cole's jaw tightened. "What'd she want?" "To inform me that I'm ruining my reputation by spending time with a drifter of questionable character." "She's not wrong." Evelyn turned to look at him. "Which part? The drifter part? The questionable character part?" Cole stared out at the street. I don't have much to offer, Evelyn. No land, no money. I work for wages and move on when the season ends. That's all I've done for 3 years." "Is that what you want to keep doing?" The question hung between them. Cole was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "I don't know what I want anymore. Used to be simple. Work, move, don't get attached. But now—" He stopped. Started again. "You make it complicated." "Sorry," Evelyn said, not sounding sorry at all. "Don't be." Cole finally looked at her, those winter blue eyes intense. "I'm not good at this. Talking, feelings, any of it. Sarah used to say I had the emotional range of a fence post." "Sarah was your wife." "Yeah." He took a breath. "We met young, got married young. She was good, better than me. Laughed easy, trusted people, saw the best in everything. And when she died, it felt like all that good died with her. Like I didn't deserve to have it again." Evelyn's hand found his. "That's not true, isn't it?" Cole's fingers tightened around hers. "I couldn't save her. Watched her suffer for 2 weeks and couldn't do a damn thing. Just sat there useless while she—" His voice cracked. "I swore I'd never feel that helpless again. Never let myself care that much." "But you do care," Evelyn said it gently. "You care about me." Cole didn't deny it. Couldn't. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "Every time I ride out here, I think maybe I should stop. Keep my distance. Because if something happened to you, if I lost you like I lost Sarah—" "Cole." Evelyn shifted to face him fully. "I can't promise nothing will happen. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise I'm not fragile. I'm not going to break just because things get hard." "I know that." "Do you?" "Because I stood in a courtroom and testified against violent men. I got dragged behind a horse and survived. I went back to teaching with visible scars because I refused to hide." Her eyes held his. "I'm not asking you to protect me from the world. I'm asking if you want to face it together." Something in Cole's expression shifted, not exactly softer, but more open, like a door he'd been holding shut had finally given way. "I'm not good at staying," he said. "Then learn." "I don't know how." "Neither do I." Evelyn smiled slightly. "We'll figure it out." Cole looked at their joined hands, then back at her face. "This is a bad idea." "Probably. Margaret Winters is going to make your life difficult. She already does. I might leave. Might wake up one day and panic and ride off like I always do. Then I'll drag you back." Evelyn's smile widened. "I'm stubborn, remember?" Despite everything, Cole felt himself smile back. "I remember." They sat there as the sun dipped toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Around them, Sullivan's Bend settled into evening, lamps being lit, families gathering for supper, the saloon starting to fill with miners done with their shift. Normal life. Ordinary life. The kind of life Cole had convinced himself he didn't deserve. "Evelyn?" "Yes?" "Can I—" He stopped, suddenly uncertain. "Can I court you? Properly, the way you deserve?" Evelyn's face lit up. "Yes. I don't know what I'm doing." "Good thing I don't care." She leaned in and kissed him, quick and soft, before he could overthink it. Cole froze, then kissed her back, one hand coming up to cup her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "That's going to make Margaret Winters furious," Evelyn said. "Good," Cole replied. They stayed on that porch until full dark, talking and laughing and occasionally kissing when they thought no one was looking. Mrs. Chen definitely saw through her kitchen window, but she kept that knowledge to herself, just smiled and left them be. The next few weeks unfolded in stolen moments between work and teaching. Cole would ride in dusty and tired, and Evelyn would be waiting with lemonade and stories about her students. They'd walk through town together, aware of the stares and whispers, but not caring as much as they probably should. The town's opinion split down the middle. Half thought Evelyn deserved happiness after what she'd been through. The other half thought she was throwing her reputation away on a man who'd be gone by winter. Cole proved them wrong by signing on at Blackstone Ranch through the winter season. "You sure about this?" the foreman asked. "Most hands head south when snow comes." "I'm sure," Cole said. He didn't mention why. Didn't need to. The whole ranch knew about the schoolteacher in town, but winter brought its own challenges. The work got harder as temperatures dropped. Cole would ride back to town in near darkness, sometimes half frozen, just to see Evelyn for an hour before she needed to sleep. "This is crazy," she said one particularly cold night, wrapped in a shawl on the porch. "You're going to freeze to death riding back and forth." "Worth it," Cole said simply. "Stay!" The word came out before Evelyn could stop it. "Mrs. Chen has a spare room. It's proper. You'd have your own space." Cole hesitated. Staying meant commitment, meant putting down roots in a way he hadn't done since Kansas. "Please," Evelyn added quietly, "I worry about you on those dark roads." That decided it. Cole moved into Mrs. Chen's boarding house 2 days later, taking the small room at the end of the hall. It was Spartan, just a bed, a washstand, and a chair, but it was warm and clean and 20 feet from Evelyn's door. The town gossips had a field day. Margaret Winters tried to get the school board to intervene, claiming inappropriate cohabitation. But Mrs. Chen shut that down fast, pointing out that she ran a respectable establishment with strict rules and separate quarters. "Besides," Mrs. Chen added sweetly, "Deputy Bennett helped capture a dangerous outlaw. I think that earns him a warm place to sleep, don't you?" The board agreed, much to Margaret's annoyance. Living under the same roof changed things between Cole and Evelyn. They saw each other at breakfast now, sleepy and disheveled. They'd pass in the hallway and exchange soft good mornings, little domestic moments that felt both ordinary and precious. Cole found himself thinking about the future for the first time in years, actually planning instead of just drifting. One evening in late November, he knocked on Evelyn's door with something in his hand. "Come in," she called. Cole entered to find her at her desk, grading papers by lamplight. She smiled when she saw him, setting down her pen. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, Cole opened his hand. A small wooden bird sat in his palm, carved from pine, wings spread like it was taking flight. "Made this for you. It's not much, but it's beautiful." Evelyn took it carefully, turning it to catch the light. The detail was incredible. Individual feathers, a tiny eye, even the curve of the beak. "Cole, this is amazing. Where did you learn to carve like this?" "My father taught me, before he died." Cole shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Used to do it to pass time on the range. Haven't picked it up in years, but I thought you might like it." Evelyn stood and kissed him, still holding the bird carefully. "I love it, thank you." They stood there for a moment, close and warm, before Cole pulled back. "There's something else I need to tell you." Evelyn's smile faded at his serious tone. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but—" Cole took a breath. "I got offered a permanent position at Blackstone. Year-round work, steady pay, eventually a chance to buy into the operation as a partner." "Cole, that's wonderful." "I haven't said yes yet." Evelyn went still. "Why not?" "Because it means staying, really staying. No more drifting, no more running when things get hard. It means," he struggled for the words, "it means choosing this, choosing you, choosing a life here. And you're not sure you can do that." "I'm terrified I can't," Cole admitted. "Every instinct I have says to keep moving, stay loose, don't get attached. But then I look at you and—" He stopped, started again. I want to stay. I want to build something real. I'm just scared I'll mess it up. Evelyn set the wooden bird down carefully on her desk. Then she took both of Cole's hands in hers. Listen to me, I'm scared too. I'm scared you'll leave. I'm scared I'm falling for someone who might wake up one day and realize he made a mistake. But being scared doesn't mean we stop trying. She squeezed his hands. Take the job, Cole. Stay. We'll figure out the rest together. Cole looked at her for a long moment, this fierce, stubborn, incredible woman who'd somehow decided he was worth the risk. Okay, he said. I'll stay. Evelyn's smile could have lit the whole room. Cole took the permanent position the next day. The foreman shook his hand, pleased to keep a good worker. The other hands ribbed him good-naturedly about settling down, but there was respect underneath the teasing. Things were good. Better than good. Then Sheriff Briggs showed up at the ranch with news that changed everything. Kane escaped, Briggs said without preamble. Cole went very still. How? Someone helped him, broke him out of the jail 2 nights ago. We found the night deputy knocked cold, cell door open, Kane gone. Briggs's face was grim. There's more. Before he left, he carved something into the cell wall. What? The schoolteacher Burns. Cole was on his horse and riding toward town before Briggs finished talking. He found Evelyn in her classroom, blissfully unaware, helping a young student with arithmetic. Cole appeared in the doorway breathing hard, and Evelyn took one look at his face and knew. What happened? Cole told her. Watched the color drain from her face. He's coming for me, Evelyn said quietly. Not if I find him first. Cole's voice was flat, deadly. But until then, you don't go anywhere alone. Ever. I'll walk you to school, pick you up after. Mrs. Chen will keep the boarding house locked. Cole? Evelyn's voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. You can't watch me every second, and I won't hide in my room like a prisoner. He wants to kill you. I know. She stood, dismissing the student gently before turning back to Cole. But I won't let him steal my life twice. Once was enough. They argued about it that night. Cole wanted her to leave town, go to Denver until Kane was recaptured. Evelyn refused. They went back and forth, voices rising, until finally Cole said what he was really thinking. I can't lose you. The words hung in the air between them. I love you, Cole continued, the admission tearing out of him. I know it's too soon. I know I shouldn't feel this much, but I do. And if Kane gets to you, if something happens... His voice broke. I can't go through that again. I can't. Evelyn crossed the room and took his face in her hands. I love you too, she said, and that's exactly why I'm not running. Because I won't let fear control our lives. We face this together, or we don't face it at all. Cole pulled her close, holding on tight, and tried not to think about all the ways this could end badly. But even as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, one thing was becoming clear. Kane was out there somewhere in the darkness, planning his revenge. And this time, one bullet might not be enough to save her. The waiting was worse than the hunt had been. 3 days passed with no sign of Kane. 3 days of Cole shadowing Evelyn like a ghost, rifle always within reach, eyes scanning every corner and rooftop. 3 days of jumping at shadows and second-guessing every stranger who rode into town. Evelyn kept teaching because she refused to do otherwise, but her students noticed the change. The way their teachers' eyes would dart to the windows during lessons. The way Deputy Bennett stood outside the schoolhouse door every afternoon, watching the street with that still, dangerous calm that made even the rowdier boys behave. On the 4th morning, a miner named Jack Tolliver stumbled into the sheriff's office, looking like he'd seen death itself. Kane, he gasped. I seen him, up in Silver Canyon, near the old processing camp. Briggs was out of his chair before Tolliver finished talking. You sure? Sure as I'm standing here, he's got a camp set up in one of the abandoned buildings. Looked like he's been there a while, watching the town through field glasses. Tolliver's hands shook as he accepted the whiskey Briggs poured him. He had drawings, maps, all marked up with routes through town, where people live, where they work. Where's the schoolhouse? Cole asked quietly from the doorway. Tolliver met his eyes. Marked in red, along with the boarding house and the general store. Cole's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. How many men with him? Didn't see nobody else, but I didn't stick around long enough to be certain. Briggs was already pulling rifles from the gun cabinet. "We ride in 1 hour. Spread the word. I want every man who can shoot and sit a horse." "No," Cole's voice cut through the room. "Not a posse. Too many men make too much noise. He'll hear us coming and rabbit again, or worse, he'll double back to town while we're all out hunting him." "So what do you suggest?" 3 men, fast and quiet. We go in before dawn, catch him sleeping." Cole's eyes were cold. "And this time we don't bring him back alive unless we have to." Briggs studied him for a long moment. "That's not how the law works, Bennett. The law already failed. He escaped from your jail, remember?" Cole's voice stayed level, but something dangerous lived underneath. "I'm not interested in another trial. I'm interested in making sure Evelyn Harper can sleep without fear." "I can't authorize." "Then don't authorize it. I'll go alone." "The hell you will." Briggs slammed his hand on the desk. "You ride off half-cocked looking for revenge. You'll get yourself killed, and that schoolteacher will lose the man she loves along with her sense of safety. That what you want?" Cole's hands curled into fists. "What I want is Kane dead and buried where he can't hurt anyone else." "I know." Briggs's voice softened slightly. "But we do this right. 3 men like you said. You, me, and Martinez. We leave at midnight, get in position before first light. If Kane surrenders, we bring him back. If he fights," he shrugged, "then we do what we have to." Cole nodded once, sharp. Midnight. He went to find Evelyn. She was in her classroom organizing books, trying to maintain normalcy even though her hands trembled slightly as she shelved each volume. She looked up when Cole entered and immediately read his expression. "You found him." "We know where he is." Cole closed the door behind him. "I'm riding out tonight. Before dawn tomorrow, this will be over." Evelyn set down the books carefully. "How dangerous?" "Hard to say. Could be simple. Could be—" He stopped, started over. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If something happens to me—" "No." Evelyn's voice was sharp. "Don't you dare start saying goodbye." "I'm not saying goodbye. I'm saying be realistic." Cole crossed to her, took her hands. "Kane is desperate and cornered. That makes him unpredictable. And I need to know that if the worst happens, you'll be okay. You'll keep living, keep fighting. I don't want to have this conversation. Neither do I, but we're having it anyway." Cole's grip tightened. "Promise me, Evelyn. Promise you won't let fear win." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "Only if you promise to come back. Promise me you won't do anything stupid trying to be a hero." "I'm not a hero." "You are to me." She pulled one hand free and touched his face. "You're everything to me, so you come back. You hear me, Cole Bennett? You come back." Cole leaned down and kissed her, slow and deep, and full of everything he couldn't quite put into words. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I'll come back," he said. "I swear it." "You better." Evelyn managed a shaky smile. "Because I'm not done with you yet. Not even close." They held each other in that quiet classroom while the afternoon sun slanted through the windows and the sound of children playing drifted in from outside. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. Cole tried to memorize the moment. The weight of Evelyn in his arms, the smell of chalk dust and old books, the way her heart beat steady against his chest. If something went wrong tomorrow, he wanted this to be what he remembered. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I love you too." Evelyn pulled back enough to look at him. "Now go get ready." "And Cole?" "Yeah?" "Kill that son of a bitch." Despite everything, Cole smiled. "Yes, ma'am." Midnight came cold and clear, stars sharp overhead like broken glass. Cole, Briggs, and Martinez met at the edge of town with minimal gear: rifles, revolvers, ammunition, canteens. No bedrolls, no food. They'd either be back by afternoon or they wouldn't be back at all. The ride to Silver Canyon took 3 hours through terrain that was treacherous even in daylight. Narrow trails along cliff edges, loose scree that could send a horse tumbling, creek crossings where one wrong step meant a broken leg. Nobody talked. They saved their breath for riding and their attention for staying alive. They reached the canyon just as the eastern sky started showing the faintest hint of gray. The old processing camp squatted against the hillside like a collection of rotting teeth. Skeletal buildings, collapsed roofs, rusted equipment slowly being reclaimed by the mountain. Briggs called a halt in a small depression out of sight from the camp. They tied the horses and checked their weapons one final time. "Remember," Briggs said quietly, "we want him alive if possible. But if he so much as twitches toward a weapon—" "We put him down," Martinez finished. "I know the drill, Walter." They split up. Martinez circled around to cover the back of the main building. Briggs took the west approach. Cole went straight up the middle, moving through the shadows like smoke. The camp was silent except for wind whistling through broken windows. Too silent, maybe. Cole's instincts screamed warning, but he couldn't pinpoint why. He reached the main building, an old bunkhouse with most of its roof intact, and pressed against the wall beside the door. Through a cracked window he could see inside. Bedroll on the floor, still warm fire pit, maps and papers scattered on a makeshift table. But no Kane. Cole's blood went cold. He was about to signal the others when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Metal scraping against wood, somewhere behind the building. Cole moved fast, rounding the corner with his rifle up. Martinez was there on his knees, hands raised. Kane stood behind him with a knife to the deputy's throat, using him as a shield. "Drop it," Kane said. His voice was hoarse, manic. "Drop the rifle or I open him up." Cole kept the rifle level. "You're surrounded, Kane. Killing Martinez just means you die tired." "Maybe I don't care about dying no more." Kane's knife hand shook slightly, but the blade stayed pressed to skin. "Maybe I just want to take as many of you with me as possible." "Then start with me." Cole lowered his rifle slightly. "Let Martinez go. You want revenge, it's me you should be mad at. I'm the one who shot your gun away. I'm the one who brought you in." "You?" Kane laughed, ugly and sharp. "You're just some drifter who got lucky. I want that schoolteacher. I want her to know what it feels like to—" The gunshot cracked from Cole's left. Briggs had circled around quiet as death and now stood 15 feet away with his revolver smoking. The bullet had taken Kane high in the shoulder, spinning him away from Martinez, the knife clattering to the ground. Martinez rolled clear and came up with his own gun drawn. Kane stumbled backward, blood spreading across his shirt, but his eyes were wild and furious. "You think this ends it? You think—" He went for something in his boot. 3 guns fired at once. Kane dropped like a puppet with cut strings. He hit the ground hard and didn't move again. Blood pooled dark in the dust. The silence afterward was absolute. Cole lowered his rifle slowly, hands steady even though his heart hammered. He'd killed men before, deer, wolves, rabid dogs, but never a human. Never looked into someone's eyes and pulled the trigger knowing it would end them. He thought he'd feel something, guilt maybe, or regret. Instead, he just felt tired. "Everyone all right?" Briggs asked. Martinez nodded, rubbing his throat where the knife had pressed. "Yeah, thanks for the shot. Had to be sure he was going for a weapon before I could take it." Briggs walked over to Kane's body, checked for a pulse out of habit. "He's done." Cole stood there looking at the dead man who'd tried to kill Evelyn twice, who'd carved threats into jail cells and probably would have kept killing until someone stopped him. "I should feel worse about this," Cole said quietly. Briggs glanced at him. "You feel how you feel. Don't apologize for being human." They wrapped the body in a tarp and loaded it across Martinez's horse. The ride back was slower, heavier. The sun rose hot and bright, promising another scorching day. Sullivan's Bend appeared in the valley below around mid-morning. Word must have spread because half the town was gathered in the street, watching as they rode in with their grim cargo. Cole scanned the crowd and found Evelyn immediately. She stood on the boarding house porch, one hand gripping the rail, her face pale but composed. Their eyes met across the distance. Cole dismounted and walked toward her while Briggs handled Kane's body, and Martinez dealt with questions. The crowd parted, giving him space, recognizing something in the set of his shoulders that said, "Leave him be." He reached the porch steps and stopped. "It's done," he said simply. Evelyn came down the steps and into his arms. She didn't ask if Kane was dead, didn't ask how it happened, just held on tight and let herself shake apart for a minute while Cole stood solid and steady and let her. "You came back," she whispered against his chest. "I promised." "I know, but—" Her voice broke. "I know." They stood like that while the town buzzed around them, while Briggs made official statements and the undertaker collected the body. None of it mattered. All that mattered was this moment, this woman in his arms, the knowledge that the threat was finally gone. Eventually, Evelyn pulled back and looked up at him. "Are you okay?" "I don't know yet," Cole admitted. "Ask me tomorrow." She nodded like she understood. "Come inside. Mrs. Chen made breakfast." "I need to help Briggs with the No." Evelyn's voice was firm. "You need to eat. You need to rest. The sheriff can handle the paperwork." Cole wanted to argue, but found he didn't have the energy. He let Evelyn lead him inside, up the stairs to the small dining room where Mrs. Chen had indeed prepared breakfast. Eggs, bacon, biscuits, coffee strong enough to strip paint. He ate mechanically, tasting nothing, while Evelyn sat across from him and just watched, making sure he was real, making sure he was whole. After breakfast, exhaustion crashed over Cole like a wave. He barely made it to his room before his legs gave out. He sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing his dusty clothes, and put his head in his hands. A soft knock at the door. "Come in," he said without looking up. Evelyn entered and closed the door behind her. She sat beside him on the bed, close but not touching. "Talk to me," she said quietly. "About what?" "About what you're feeling right now." Cole was silent for a long time. "I killed a man today," he finally said. "First time. I've shot at men before, wounded them, but never like this." "Are you sorry?" "No. That's what scares me." He looked at her. "I know I should be. He was a human being, flawed and broken, but still human, and I feel nothing except relief that he can't hurt you anymore." "That doesn't make you a monster, Cole. That makes you someone who protected the person he loves." "Where's the line? Between protection and murder?" Evelyn took his hand. "I don't know, but I know you. I know your heart. And I trust that you did what you had to do." Cole wanted to believe her, wanted to believe he was still the man who carved wooden birds and kissed her gentle on boarding house porches. But something had shifted inside him this morning when he'd pulled that trigger. He'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. "Get some sleep," Evelyn said. "I'll be right next door if you need me." She started to stand, but Cole caught her hand. "Stay," he said. "Please, just stay with me." Evelyn hesitated for only a second. Then she kicked off her shoes and lay down beside him on top of the covers, fully dressed and proper. Cole lay down too, on his side facing her, and she reached out and touched his face. "Close your eyes," she whispered. "I've got you." Cole closed his eyes and let himself drift, lulled by Evelyn's presence and the knowledge that for the first time in weeks, she was truly safe. He slept dreamlessly until evening. When he woke, the room was dim with sunset light and Evelyn was gone. A note on the bedside table said she'd gone to check on her students but would be back for dinner. Cole washed up and changed clothes, feeling more human. His body ached from the ride and the tension, but the bone-deep exhaustion had lifted slightly. He found Briggs in his office, working through paperwork. "How you holding up?" the sheriff asked. "Alive? That's something." Cole sat in the visitor's chair. "What happens now?" "Now we close the case. Kane's death was justified. Multiple witnesses, clear threat. The mining company's already distancing themselves, claiming they had no knowledge of his escape or plans." Briggs's smile was bitter. "Convenient. Will there be an investigation?" "Pro forma only. Maybe a hearing in front of the territorial judge, but that won't happen for months." Briggs leaned back. "You're clear, Bennett, both legally and morally, in case you're wondering." Cole wasn't sure he believed the moral part, but he nodded anyway. "I'm glad it's over," he said. "So's the whole town, especially Miss Harper." Briggs studied him. "You planning to make an honest woman of her?" Cole blinked at the sudden topic shift. We haven't talked about. Maybe you should. Woman like that doesn't come along twice." Briggs's expression was knowing. "And you already look at her like she hung the moon." "It's complicated." "It's only complicated if you make it complicated." Briggs pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle from his desk drawer. "Have a drink with me." To surviving. They drank in companionable silence. Outside, the town settled into evening routines. Normal life resuming now that the threat was gone. "I'm thinking about asking her," Cole said eventually, "to marry me. But I don't know if I'm ready for that. If I can be what she needs. Nobody's ever ready. You just decide it's worth trying." Briggs poured another round. Take it from someone who's been married 32 years. Marriage isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up every day and choosing each other even when it's hard. Cole thought about that, about choosing to stay instead of running, about building something permanent instead of drifting. It terrified him. It also felt exactly right. He found Evelyn in her classroom after dinner, organizing books for the next day's lessons. She looked up when he entered and smiled. Feeling better? Yeah, thanks for staying with me earlier. Of course. Evelyn set down the books. Cole, is everything? Marry me. The words came out rushed and graceless, nothing like the romantic proposal Cole had vaguely imagined. But they were out now, hanging in the air between them. Evelyn's eyes went wide. What? I know it's fast. I don't have much to offer except a ranch hand's wages and too much emotional baggage and a tendency to shut down when things get hard. But, Cole took a breath. But I love you. And I want to build a life with you. A real life. Here, if you'll have me. Evelyn just stared at him. Cole's heart sank. It's too soon. I shouldn't have. Yes. Asked so suddenly I just thought, wait, what? Yes. Evelyn laughed, bright and joyful. Yes, I'll marry you, you impossible man. Cole felt his face split into a grin he couldn't control. Yeah? Yeah. Evelyn crossed the room and threw her arms around his neck. Did you really think I'd say no? I thought you might want time to think about it, or a better proposal, or... She kissed him quiet. When they finally broke apart, both of them were laughing and crying at the same time. I don't need a better proposal, Evelyn said. I just need you, exactly as you are. Cole held her close, marveling at the impossible fact of this moment. 3 months ago, he'd been a drifter with nothing but a horse and a gun. Now, he had a job, a home, and the woman he loved saying yes to forever. We should probably talk about details, Evelyn said, still wrapped in his arms. When, where, how? Don't care. You pick. Cole, I'm serious. Big ceremony, small ceremony, tomorrow or next year. Whatever makes you happy. He pulled back enough to see her face. I just want to be your husband. The rest is details. Evelyn's eyes shone with tears. How about next month? Small ceremony, just close friends, nothing fancy. Perfect. They sealed it with another kiss, this one slower, deeper, full of promises about the future they'd build together. Outside the classroom window, the sun finished setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The town settled into peaceful evening, unaware that in this small schoolhouse, two people who'd survived hell together were planning there forever. Word spread fast, as it always did in small towns. By the next morning, everyone knew that the schoolteacher and the cowboy who saved her were getting married. The reaction was mostly positive. After everything they'd been through, most folks agreed they'd earned some happiness. Margaret Winters, predictably, had opinions. Unseemly haste, she sniffed to anyone who'd listen. Barely 4 months since the attack, and already planning a wedding. What will people think? Most people thought it was romantic. Some thought it was practical. Why wait when you'd already found what you were looking for? A few cynics thought it wouldn't last, that the drama of the courtship would fade into boring reality. Cole and Evelyn didn't much care what anyone thought. They spent the next few weeks in a blur of planning and work and stolen moments together. Cole kept his job at Blackstone Ranch, putting in long days while Evelyn taught. Evenings, they'd walk through town together, discussing flower arrangements and guest lists and where they'd live after the wedding. Mrs. Chen offered us the larger room on the second floor, Evelyn said one evening. 2 windows, more space. We could stay there until we save enough for our own place. Or I could start building us a house. The idea had been growing in Cole's mind for days. There's land available just outside town. Nothing fancy but enough for a small house and maybe some horses eventually. Evelyn stopped walking and looked at him. You want to build a house. I want to build us a home. Cole took her hand. Something permanent. Something that's ours. That sounds... Evelyn's voice caught. That sounds perfect. They bought the land the next week. 5 acres on a gentle slope with mountain views and a creek running through the back corner. Cole started drawing plans, rough sketches of a simple 2-room cabin that could be expanded later. You know how to build a house? Evelyn asked, studying his drawings. I've helped build a few, and what I don't know, I'll learn. Cole added a porch to the sketch. By summer, we'll have a roof over our heads that's ours. No landlords, no boarding house rules, just us. The wedding was set for a Sunday in early December. Small ceremony in the town hall, reception at the boarding house. Evelyn ordered a simple dress from the seamstress. Cole borrowed a suit from Briggs, who was close enough in size. The night before the wedding, Cole couldn't sleep. He lay in his boarding house room staring at the ceiling, thinking about Sarah. About the farm in Kansas and the life they'd tried to build. About promises made and broken by death and circumstance. He hadn't thought about her much in recent weeks. The guilt of that sat heavy in his chest. A soft knock at his door. Cole? You awake? Evelyn's voice, quiet in the darkness. Cole opened the door to find her in her nightgown with a shawl wrapped around her shoulders, looking young and nervous. Can't sleep either? He asked. Keep thinking about tomorrow, about... She stopped. Can I come in? Just for a minute? I know it's not proper, but since when do we care about proper? Cole stepped aside. Evelyn entered and sat on the edge of his bed. Cole lit the lamp on the bedside table, keeping it low. What's wrong? He asked gently. Nothing's wrong. I'm just... Evelyn twisted her hands together. I'm scared. Not of marrying you, but of being someone's wife. Of all the ways I could fail at it. Cole sat beside her. You won't fail. How do you know? Because you don't fail at things that matter. You stood up in court when it was dangerous. You went back to teaching with visible scars. You said yes to a broken-down drifter who'd forgotten how to hope. He took her hand. That's not someone who fails. That's someone who fights. Evelyn leaned against his shoulder. What if I can't give you children? What if... Then we'll have a good life anyway. Or we'll adopt. Or we'll pour all that love into our students and the community. Cole kissed the top of her head. I'm not marrying you for what you might give me, Evelyn. I'm marrying you because I can't imagine not being married to you. They sat like that for a while, comfortable in the quiet darkness. I think about Sarah sometimes, Cole admitted. Wonder what she'd think of all this. Of you. What do you think she'd say? Cole considered. I think she'd tell me to stop being an idiot and love you properly. She was practical like that. Didn't believe in wasting time on guilt when you could be living. She sounds wonderful. She was. And she's gone, and I'll always carry that with me. He squeezed Evelyn's hand. But that doesn't mean I can't build something new, something different, with you. Evelyn lifted her head and kissed him, soft and sweet. I love you, Cole Bennett. I love you too, future Mrs. Bennett. She smiled at that, then stood reluctantly. I should go, before Mrs. Chen catches us and has a heart attack. Probably wise. At the door, Evelyn turned back. Tomorrow. No matter what happens, no matter who shows up or doesn't, no matter what goes wrong, I'm going to be there. And I'm going to marry you. I'll be there too, Cole promised. Wouldn't miss it for the world. After she left, Cole lay back down and found he could sleep after all. Tomorrow, he'd marry the bravest woman he'd ever known. Tomorrow, he'd start building the life he'd stopped believing he could have. Tomorrow, everything would change. But this time, change didn't scare him nearly as much as it used to. The morning of the wedding dawned cold and clear, frost coating the windows of the boarding house in delicate patterns. Cole woke before sunrise, too restless to sleep, and spent an hour pacing his small room like a caged animal. He'd faced down armed outlaws with steadier nerves than this. Around 7, a knock came at his door. Briggs stood in the hallway holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing an amused expression. You look like hell, the sheriff said, handing over one of the cups. Thanks. Nervous? Terrified. Cole took a long drink of the scalding coffee. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not... What if she wakes up a year from now and realizes she made a mistake? Then you'll deal with it together. Briggs leaned against the doorframe. But that's not going to happen. I've seen the way she looks at you, son. That woman knows exactly what she's getting. A broke ranch hand with more scars than sense? A good man who loves her. Briggs's voice was firm. Stop looking for reasons to doubt yourself. You already won, Bennett. Now you just have to show up and say the words. Cole wanted to believe him, wanted to believe he deserved this happiness, this second chance, but old doubts died hard. Did you feel like this? he asked. When you married? Worse. Briggs smiled at the memory. Threw up twice before the ceremony. My best man had to physically push me down the aisle. But the second I saw Martha standing there, everything else disappeared. Been married 32 years now, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Cole took another drink of coffee, letting the warmth settle his nerves fractionally. What if I can't make her happy? What if you can? Briggs pushed off the door frame. Get dressed. Ceremony's at noon, and you still need to pick up the ring from the jeweler. The ring. Cole had almost forgotten. He'd ordered it 3 weeks ago from the town jeweler, a simple gold band with Evelyn's initials engraved inside. Nothing fancy, but it was all he could afford on ranch wages. He got dressed carefully in Briggs's borrowed suit, black wool that smelled faintly of mothballs. His hands shook slightly as he knotted the tie. Had to start over twice before getting it right. A glance in the small mirror showed a stranger looking back. Clean-shaven, hair-combed, dressed like a respectable citizen instead of a drifter. Cole barely recognized himself. Maybe that was the point. He collected the ring from the jeweler who wished him luck with a knowing smile. Then he made his way to the town hall where the ceremony would take place, arriving deliberately early to avoid the crowd. The hall had been decorated simply. Wildflowers in mason jars, borrowed chairs arranged in neat rows, a small table at the front where the justice of the peace would officiate. Sunlight streamed through the windows, making everything glow golden. Mrs. Chen bustled in, carrying more flowers, took one look at Cole standing frozen in the doorway, and smiled. She'll be here, the older woman said gently. Stop looking so worried. I'm not worried. You're terrified. It's written all over your face. Mrs. Chen arranged the flowers with practiced efficiency. But that's good. Means you understand what you're getting. Marriage isn't easy, Mr. Bennett. It takes work and patience and choosing each other every single day, even when you don't want to. That's not very reassuring. It's not meant to be reassuring, it's meant to be honest. She finished with the flowers and turned to face him directly. But I've watched you two together. I've seen how you look at her, how she looks at you. You'll be fine. Cole hoped she was right. People started arriving around 11. Ranch hands from Blackstone, scrubbed clean and wearing their Sunday best. Evelyn's students, giggling and excited. Shop owners, miners, townspeople who'd watched the whole courtship unfold and wanted to see how it ended. Even Margaret Winters showed up, though she sat in the back with a pinched expression that suggested she still disapproved of the entire affair. Martinez clapped Cole on the shoulder as he took his place at the front. You ready for this? No? Good answer. Martinez grinned. I'll be right here if you need to run. Not helping. The justice of the peace arrived, a serious man named Henderson who'd married half the territory over the past 20 years. He positioned himself at the front and opened his worn book of ceremony texts. Bride should be here in about 10 minutes, he said conversationally. You doing all right, son? Fine, Cole lied. The next 10 minutes lasted approximately 3 years. Cole stood at the front of the hall, hyper-aware of every eye on him, every whispered conversation, every second that ticked past. His collar felt too tight. The borrowed suit itched. He couldn't remember the words he was supposed to say. Then the back door opened and everything else disappeared. Evelyn stood in the doorway wearing a simple cream-colored dress, her dark hair pinned up with small white flowers woven through it. No veil, no elaborate train, nothing fancy. Just her, backlit by noon sun, looking at him like he was the only person in the world. The scars on her wrists were visible. She hadn't tried to hide them. Cole's breath caught. Mrs. Chen, acting as impromptu escort, walked Evelyn down the short aisle. The older woman's eyes were bright with unshed tears. When they reached the front, she pressed Evelyn's hand into Cole's and stepped back. Evelyn smiled up at him. Hi. Hi yourself. Cole's voice came out rough. You look like a schoolteacher in a borrowed dress? Beautiful. You look beautiful. Evelyn's smile widened. You clean up pretty well yourself, Cowboy. Henderson cleared his throat gently. Shall we begin? The ceremony was short. Henderson spoke about commitment and partnership, about choosing each other in good times and bad. Cole heard maybe half of it, too focused on Evelyn's hand in his, on the way she looked at him with absolute certainty. When it came time for vows, Henderson nodded at Cole. Cole's mind went blank. He'd memorized words, practiced what he'd say, but all of it evaporated under the weight of the moment. I don't have fancy words, he started over. I'm not good at expressing things, but I promise to show up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to listen when you need to talk and be quiet when you need silence. I promise to build you that house and make it a home. And I promise, his voice cracked slightly, I promise to never let you fall, not ever again. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Henderson turned to her. And you, Evelyn? I promise to be honest with you, even when the truth is difficult, to stand beside you, not behind you, to let you be strong when I'm weak, and to be strong when you need me. I promise to never ask you to be someone you're not, and to love exactly who you are. She squeezed his hands. And I promise to catch you if you fall, because partnership goes both ways. The rings, Henderson prompted. Martinez produced them from his pocket with a flourish. Cole took Evelyn's ring with trembling fingers, slipped it onto her hand with more care than he'd ever handled anything. Evelyn did the same for him, the gold band settling on his finger like it had always belonged there. By the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, Henderson said, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Cole pulled Evelyn into his arms and kissed her like they were the only two people in the entire world. The hall erupted in cheers and applause, but he barely heard it, too focused on the woman in his arms, on the impossible fact that she was his wife now. His wife. When they finally broke apart, both of them were grinning like fools. Mrs. Bennett, Cole said, testing out the name. Mr. Bennett, Evelyn replied, laughing. We did it. Yeah, we really did. The reception at the boarding house was loud and chaotic and perfect. Mrs. Chen had outdone herself with the food, and someone had produced a fiddle for music. People danced in the cramped parlor, spilling out onto the porch and into the yard. Cole, who'd never been much for dancing, found himself pulled onto the makeshift dance floor by his new wife. They moved awkwardly, stepping on each other's feet, laughing at their own lack of grace. We're terrible at this, Evelyn said as Cole nearly tripped over his own boots. Absolutely awful, he agreed. Want to stop? Not even a little bit. So they kept dancing, terrible and happy, while the town celebrated around them. Later, when the sun started setting and people began drifting home, Cole and Evelyn slipped away to the larger room Mrs. Chen had prepared for them. Someone had decorated it with more flowers and fresh linens, had left a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the small table. They stood in the doorway together, suddenly shy despite everything. So, Evelyn said. So, Cole echoed, we're married. Apparently. Evelyn laughed and pulled him inside, closing the door on the rest of the world. Winter settled over Sullivan's Bend with heavy snow and brutal cold, but Cole barely noticed. He spent his days at Blackstone Ranch working cattle in freezing conditions, and his nights in the warm room he shared with Evelyn, talking and planning and learning what it meant to build a life with someone. Marriage was harder than he'd expected, and easier at the same time. Harder, because Evelyn had her own routines and opinions and ways of doing things that didn't always match his. Easier because they'd both survived enough hardship to know what mattered and what didn't. They fought sometimes, small disagreements that flared hot and burned out fast. Cole would retreat into silence when things got difficult. Evelyn would push when he wanted space. They'd learn to navigate it slowly through trial and error. You can't just shut down every time we disagree, Evelyn said one evening after a particularly tense argument about money. I'm not shutting down. I'm thinking. You're hiding. Evelyn's voice was gentle but firm. I know it's your instinct when things get hard, but we're partners now. That means you talk to me, even when it's uncomfortable. Cole stared at his hands. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I hurt you? Then we'll work through it, together. She took his hand. I'm not going anywhere, Cole. You can't scare me off, but you can shut me out, and that's the one thing I can't live with. It took work. More work than Cole had anticipated. But slowly, painfully, he learned to open up, to share the thoughts he'd always kept locked away, to trust that Evelyn wouldn't leave just because he showed her the broken parts. And she did the same. Told him about her own fears and insecurities, about the nightmares she still had sometimes about being dragged behind that horse, about her worry that she wasn't enough, couldn't be enough for someone like him. You're more than enough, Cole told her fiercely. You're everything. They learned each other slowly. The way Evelyn liked her coffee. The way Cole couldn't sleep if the room was too quiet. The small rituals that made them feel like a unit instead of two people sharing space. Spring came eventually, melting the snow and turning the ground soft enough to break. Cole started building their house on weekends and evenings, working by lamplight when necessary. The foundation went up first, then the frame, then slowly the walls. Evelyn helped when she could, holding boards steady while he hammered, handing him tools, keeping him company during the long hours. Her students sometimes came to watch, fascinated by the process. "You're building a whole house," one little girl said, awed. "We're building a home," Evelyn corrected gently. By summer, the house was finished. 2 rooms like Cole had planned, with a porch facing the mountains and a stone fireplace he'd built by hand. Nothing fancy, but solid, permanent. They moved in on a blazing July afternoon, carrying their few possessions from the boarding house. That first night, they sat on their new porch watching the sunset, and Cole felt something settle in his chest that he hadn't even realized was restless. "What are you thinking?" Evelyn asked. "That I never thought I'd have this again. A home, a wife, a future." He pulled her closer. "Thank you for taking a chance on a drifter. Thank you for staying." The words hung between them, simple and profound. In August, Evelyn started feeling sick in the mornings. At first she blamed it on something she ate, but when it continued for 2 weeks, Mrs. Chen pulled her aside with knowing eyes. "How late are you?" the older woman asked bluntly. Evelyn's eyes widened. I haven't thought so," Mrs. Chen smiled. "Congratulations, dear. You're going to need a bigger house." Evelyn told Cole that evening while he was washing up after a day's work. She just blurted it out, too nervous to be subtle. "I'm pregnant." Cole froze, water still dripping from his hands. "What?" "I'm pregnant. The baby should come around February, maybe March." She watched his face anxiously. Do you? Cole crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, holding on so tight she could barely breathe. "We're having a baby," he said against her hair. "We are. Are you happy?" "Terrified," Cole admitted. "Absolutely terrified, but yeah, happy." He pulled back enough to see her face, and Evelyn saw tears in his eyes. "I'm going to be a father." "A good one," Evelyn said firmly. "The best one." "I don't know how." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. Together. The pregnancy was hard. Evelyn was sick constantly for the first few months, could barely keep food down, exhausted all the time. Cole hovered like an anxious mother hen, driving her slightly crazy with his concern. "I'm fine," she insisted after he'd asked for the 10th time in an hour. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I'm not going to break." "I know, but nothing. I need you to trust me to know my own body." She softened her tone. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But you have to let me do this my way." Cole tried. It wasn't easy, watching her struggle and not being able to fix it, but he learned to step back, to support without smothering. As Evelyn's belly grew, they added a 3rd room to the house, a nursery with a small window overlooking the mountains. Cole built a cradle by hand, carving small birds into the headboard. The town watched the pregnancy with interest. Most people were genuinely happy for them. A few made quiet bets about whether Evelyn would survive the birth, given how small she was. Cole overheard those bets once and nearly started a fistfight before Briggs pulled him away. "Don't listen to them," the sheriff said. "Fear-talking, that's all. Childbirth is dangerous and people deal with that fear in stupid ways." "She could die," Cole said flatly. "Women die in childbirth all the time. Sarah—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Sarah's sister died having her 2nd baby. I was there, I saw—" "Evelyn isn't Sarah's sister, and Dr. Hendricks is good at his job." Briggs gripped Cole's shoulder. "But if you're this scared, you need to tell your wife. Not bottle it up until you explode." That night, Cole told Evelyn everything. About Sarah's sister, about the blood and the screaming and how helpless everyone had been. About his bone-deep terror that he'd lose her the same way. Evelyn listened quietly, then took his face in her hands. I can't promise you I won't die, she said. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise I'll fight. I'm not going gently into anything, Cole Bennett. You know that about me. I know. Then trust me. Trust us. She placed his hand on her swollen belly where the baby was kicking. We're fighters, all three of us. Cole wanted to believe her, tried to believe her, but as her due date approached, his fear grew teeth. The baby came early, in the middle of a February snowstorm. Cole woke to Evelyn gripping his arm, her face pale in the moonlight streaming through the window. It's time, she said quietly. Cole was out of bed and pulling on clothes before she finished speaking. I'll get the doctor. Just don't. Breathe, Cole. We have time. But they didn't have much. By the time Cole got Dr. Hendricks and Mrs. Chen to the house, Evelyn's contractions were coming hard and fast. The storm had worsened, wind howling around the house, snow piling against the windows. Boil water, Hendricks ordered Cole, then wait outside. I'm not leaving her. You're going to be in the way. I don't care. Cole moved to Evelyn's side and took her hand. I'm staying. Hendricks looked at Evelyn, who nodded through another contraction. He stays, she gasped. I need him. So Cole stayed, holding Evelyn's hand while she labored through the long night. He'd seen a lot of hard things in his life, but watching the woman he loved in that kind of pain was among the worst. She screamed. She cried. She squeezed his hand so hard he thought bones might break. I can't, she sobbed at one point, exhausted beyond bearing. I can't do this anymore. You can, Cole said fiercely. You're the strongest person I know. You stood up to outlaws and mining companies and every bastard who said you should stay quiet. You can do this. What if something goes wrong? Then we'll deal with it, together. But you're going to make it. You hear me? You promised to catch me if I fall. Well, I'm right here, and I'm not letting you fall either. The baby came as dawn broke, filling the small house with angry cries. A boy, Hendricks announced, cleaning the infant and wrapping him in blankets. Cole looked at his son for the first time and felt his entire world shift on its axis. The baby was red and wrinkled and covered in vernix, screaming his displeasure at being born into a cold world. He was perfect. Let me see him, Evelyn said weakly. Hendricks placed the baby in her arms. Evelyn looked down at her son and started crying, exhausted tears streaming down her face. He's here, she whispered. He's really here. Cole knelt beside the bed, one hand on Evelyn's shoulder, one finger touching the baby's tiny fist. The infant's hand opened and closed around Cole's finger, gripped surprisingly strong. We did it, Evelyn said, looking at Cole with tired, triumphant eyes. You did it, Cole corrected. You were... His voice broke. You were incredible. They named him Thomas, after Cole's father. Tommy, for short. The first few months were brutal. Tommy cried constantly, especially at night. Neither Cole nor Evelyn knew what they were doing, stumbling through feedings and diaper changes and endless sleepless nights. Cole was terrified every second, terrified he'd drop the baby or feed him wrong or somehow damage him irreparably. Evelyn was exhausted beyond reason, trying to recover from childbirth while caring for a newborn and eventually returning to teaching part-time. They fought more than they had in the entire first year of their marriage, snapping at each other over nothing, too tired to be kind, too stressed to be patient. I can't do this, Evelyn said one particularly bad night, crying while Tommy screamed inconsolably. I'm a terrible mother. I don't know what he needs. You're not terrible. You're exhausted. Cole took the baby from her gently. Go sleep. I've got him. You have to work tomorrow. I'll survive. Sleep, Evelyn. That's an order from your husband. Cole walked Tommy around the house for 3 hours, bouncing and shushing and singing off-key ranch songs until the baby finally settled. When he checked on Evelyn, she was dead asleep, sprawled across the bed like she'd collapsed. Looking at her sleeping face, at the baby quiet in his arms, Cole felt something click into place. This was his family, his responsibility, his joy. It was hard and messy and nothing like he'd imagined. It was perfect. As Tommy grew, things got easier. The baby smiled at 6 weeks, laughed at 3 months, started sleeping longer stretches at night. Evelyn recovered her strength and returned to teaching, with Mrs. Chen watching Tommy during school hours. Cole found he was good with the baby, patient in ways he'd never been with adults. He'd carry Tommy around the ranch, talking to him about horses and cattle and the mountains. The baby would stare at him with solemn eyes, like he understood every word. "He's going to be a cowboy like his daddy," one of the ranch hands said, watching Cole work one-handed while Tommy napped against his chest in a sling Evelyn had sewn. "Or a teacher like his mama," Cole replied. "Either way's fine with me." Years passed, measured in birthdays and first words and skinned knees. Tommy grew into a wild, curious boy who wanted to know everything about everything. 2 years after Tommy came a daughter they named Sarah, after Cole's first wife. Evelyn had suggested it hesitantly, unsure how Cole would react. "She was part of your life," Evelyn said, "part of who you became. I don't want you to forget her." Cole had cried when he held baby Sarah for the first time, overwhelmed by the gesture and the impossible grace of having a second chance he never thought he deserved. The house expanded again. More rooms, a bigger porch. The ranch work continued. Evelyn's school grew, requiring a larger building and additional teachers. Life was hard. Money was always tight. The children got sick. Droughts killed cattle. Winters were brutal. But they weathered it together, Cole and Evelyn, side by side like they'd promised. On their 10th anniversary, Cole took Evelyn back to the spot on Canyon Road where it all began. The marker was still there, weathered but standing. "Best shot I ever made," Cole said, same as always. "Best catch too," Evelyn replied, smiling. They stood there holding hands while the sunset painted the mountains gold, and Cole thought about the drifter he'd been, and the man he'd become. He'd built something permanent after all. Not just a house or a ranch or even a family, though he had all of those things. He'd built a life worth living, and he'd done it by learning the hardest lesson of all, that staying was braver than running, that love was a choice you made every single day, and that sometimes the best thing you could do was catch someone when they fell, and let them catch you right back. The years accumulated like snow on the mountains, silent and steady, transforming everything they touched. Cole turned 42 on a spring morning with 3 children racing through the house and a 4th on the way. He stood at the kitchen window watching Tommy, now 16 and nearly as tall as his father, work the horses in the corral with the kind of natural grace Cole had spent years developing. Sarah, 14, sat on the porch reading to her younger brother Jacob, age 9, who'd rather be anywhere else but was too polite to say so. "You're getting old," Evelyn said, coming up behind him and wrapping her arms around his waist. Her belly pressed against his back, 6 months pregnant and showing no signs of slowing down. "We're getting old," Cole corrected. "Speak for yourself." But she smiled when she said it, the kind of smile that still made his chest tight, even after 16 years of marriage. The ranch had grown beyond anything Cole had imagined that first winter. What started as 5 acres and a 2-room cabin now sprawled across 200 acres, with proper barns, a bunkhouse for the seasonal hands, and a main house that had been expanded so many times the original structure was barely visible beneath the additions. Blackstone Ranch had offered Cole a partnership 5 years back, making him part owner of one of the largest operations in Colorado. The scared drifter who had arrived in Sullivan's Bend with nothing but a horse and a gun now employed 20 men and ran cattle across 3 counties. It should have felt like success. Most days it did. But some mornings, Cole still woke up expecting it all to disappear, convinced he'd blink and find himself back on some dusty trail with nothing permanent to his name. "Stop it," Evelyn said, reading his expression the way she always could. "Stop what?" "Whatever you're thinking that's making your jaw do that thing." She turned him around to face her. "This is real, Cole. We built this. It's not going anywhere." "I know. Do you?" Her eyes searched his. "Because sometimes I still catch you looking at the horizon like you're planning your escape route." Cole pulled her close, careful of her belly. "I'm not going anywhere. Haven't you figured that out yet?" "Most days, but you're still you, and some part of you will always be that drifter who doesn't trust good things to last." She wasn't wrong. Even now, even after everything, Cole carried that restlessness like an old scar. It didn't hurt anymore, but he could still feel it sometimes, especially when life got too comfortable. "Mama!" Jacob's voice carried from the porch. "Sarah won't let me go help Tommy with the horses." "That's because you're supposed to be practicing your reading," Sarah called back. "I hate reading." Evelyn sighed and pulled away from Cole. "Duty calls. But we're not done with this conversation. She headed outside to mediate, leaving Cole alone with his coffee and his thoughts. Through the window, he watched his family, watched the life he'd built, and tried to convince himself he deserved it. That same afternoon, a telegram arrived from Denver that changed everything again. The messenger found Cole in the south pasture checking fence line. "Wire for you, Mr. Bennett. Looks important." Cole opened it with dirt-stained hands, squinting at the cramped handwriting. "Mining company. Filing suit. Stop. Claiming water rights to your land. Stop. Need you in Denver next week. Stop. Bring documentation. Stop." Cole read it twice, feeling cold settle in his gut despite the warm spring sun. The mining company. Still around, still hungry, still looking for ways to expand their empire, even though most of the easy silver was long gone. They'd been buying up water rights across the territory, controlling access to streams and rivers, forcing smaller operations out of business. And now they wanted his land. That evening, Cole sat at the kitchen table with Evelyn and went through every deed, every contract, every scrap of paper that proved they owned their water rights fair and square. "We bought this land legally," Evelyn said, her teacher's precision showing through as she organized documents. "We have clear title. They can't just... They can try." Cole's voice was flat. "Money buys a lot of legal creativity, and the company has more lawyers than we have cattle. So what do we do?" "I go to Denver. Fight it." He looked at her. "This could take months, Evelyn. Court proceedings, depositions, legal fees we can't really afford. And there's no guarantee we win." Evelyn's hand went to her belly, protective. "This is our home. Our children's home. We don't just surrender it." "I'm not suggesting we surrender. I'm warning you it's going to be ugly. When has anything worthwhile ever been easy for us?" She reached across the table and took his hand. "We've survived worse than lawyers and mining companies." Cole wanted to believe her. But this felt different somehow. Not physically dangerous like Kane had been, but threatening in a way that was harder to fight. You couldn't shoot a lawsuit, couldn't outride bureaucratic paperwork. He left for Denver the following week, leaving Martinez in charge of the ranch and Evelyn managing everything else despite being heavily pregnant. Tommy stepped up without being asked, working dawn to dusk alongside the hands, proving himself more capable than most grown men. Denver was loud and crowded and everything Cole hated about cities. The company's lawyers were slick, confident men in expensive suits who talked about legal precedents and territorial law like it was all just a game. The first meeting lasted 4 hours and accomplished nothing except giving Cole a headache. "They're trying to wear you down," his own lawyer said afterward. A young man named Patterson, who charged less than the big firms but seemed sharp enough. "Make you give up rather than fight." "I don't give up," Cole said. "Good, because this is going to take a while." Patterson wasn't lying. Days turned into weeks. Cole sat through endless meetings, signed more papers than he'd thought existed, and slowly bled money into legal fees while his ranch ran without him. Letters from Evelyn arrived every few days, full of news about the children and the ranch, and carefully worded reassurances that everything was fine. But Cole could read between the lines. Money was getting tight. Tommy had injured his hand working the forge. Sarah was struggling with advanced mathematics and getting frustrated. Jacob had gotten into a fight at school. And Evelyn was due any day now, facing her 4th childbirth, without her husband there to hold her hand. Cole sat in his cramped Denver hotel room reading her latest letter and hated himself for being absent, for choosing legal battles over being present for his family. Except he wasn't choosing. He was fighting for their future, for the land that would belong to his children someday. It still felt like failure. 3 weeks into the proceedings, Patterson brought unexpected news. "They're offering a settlement," the lawyer said, sliding papers across the table. "They'll drop the lawsuit if you sell them access rights to the creek running through your south boundary. Basically an easement. They can use the water, but you keep the land." Cole read the terms carefully. "And if I refuse?" "We go to trial. Could take 6 months, maybe a year. You'd have to stay in Denver for most of it." "What are our chances of winning?" Patterson hesitated. 60-40 in our favor, maybe. Their claim is weak, but they've got resources and connections. Judges can be influenced." Cole thought about Evelyn alone on the ranch, about missing the birth of his 4th child, about Tommy growing up without a father around to guide him. He thought about surrendering even an inch of the land they'd built together. No settlement, he said finally. We fight. Patterson nodded like he'd expected that answer. Then we'd better get to work. Trial starts in 3 weeks. That night, Cole wrote to Evelyn explaining his decision. He tried to make it sound reasonable, logical, like it was the only choice. Her response came 5 days later. I had the baby. A girl. We named her Grace because it felt right. She's healthy and loud and has your eyes. Tommy helped with the delivery because the doctor couldn't get here in time. Our son is braver than either of us knew. I understand why you're staying in Denver. I hate it, but I understand it. Fight for our land, Cole. Fight for our future. We'll hold things together here, but come home as soon as you can. Grace needs to meet her father, and I need my husband. I love you. Cole read the letter 3 times, vision blurring with tears he didn't bother hiding in the privacy of his room. He'd missed it, missed the birth of his daughter, missed being there when Evelyn needed him, missed watching his 16-year-old son step up and become a man. For what? Legal proceedings and courtroom battles that might not even matter in the end? He almost left Denver that night. Almost said to hell with the lawsuit and the land and everything else, because what good was any of it if he wasn't there for the moments that actually mattered? But Evelyn's words held him in place. Fight for our future. So he stayed. And he fought. The trial was brutal. The mining company's lawyers were vicious, attacking every aspect of Cole's claim. They brought up his past as a drifter, implied he'd obtained the land through questionable means, suggested he wasn't a reliable witness because he'd killed a man years ago. Cole sat through it all, jaw clenched, while Patterson systematically dismantled their arguments. Mr. Bennett purchased his land legally and openly, Patterson told the judge. He's built a thriving ranch that employs dozens of people and contributes significantly to the local economy. The mining company's claim to water rights is based on outdated territorial laws that were never properly ratified. They're engaging in legal bullying, nothing more. It took 2 weeks of testimony, expert witnesses, and document review before the judge finally made his ruling. I find in favor of the defendant, Judge Morrison said, his voice carrying across the packed courtroom. The mining company has failed to prove legitimate claim to water rights on Mr. Bennett's property. The lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Cole felt the tension drain out of him so fast he nearly fell over. We won, Patterson said, grinning. You can go home. Cole left Denver the same day, not even waiting to pack properly. He rode hard, covering ground faster than was probably safe, driven by the desperate need to see his family. He reached the ranch 3 days later, dusty and exhausted and so relieved he could barely think straight. Evelyn was on the porch feeding the baby when he rode up. She looked up, saw him, and her face transformed into pure joy. Cole! He was off his horse and pulling her into his arms before she could stand, careful of the infant between them. I'm sorry, he said into her hair. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. Stop. Evelyn pulled back to look at him. You were exactly where you needed to be. We're fine. And now you're home. She shifted the bundle in her arms. Meet your daughter. Cole looked down at the tiny face peeking out from the blanket and felt his heart crack open all over again. Grace had dark hair and slate blue eyes, and when she yawned, he could see she had Evelyn's stubborn chin. She's perfect, he whispered. She is. Evelyn smiled. Now come inside. Your son wants to show you the new foal. Sarah made you a welcome home cake that's slightly lopsided, and Jacob has approximately 300 questions about Denver. That night, after the children were asleep and Grace was settled in her cradle, Cole and Evelyn sat on their porch watching the stars emerge one by one. I've been thinking, Cole said quietly, about what we're building here, about legacy. What about it? I want to make sure it lasts. Not just the ranch, but everything. The values, the idea that you fight for what matters, that you show up for people. He looked at her. I don't want our children growing up thinking success is just about land or money. They won't. They're learning by watching us. Evelyn leaned against his shoulder. Tommy delivered his sister because that's what needed doing. Sarah tutors the younger children at my school for free. Even Jacob, for all his wildness, shares everything he has with anyone who needs it. They're good people, Cole, because we showed them how to be. You showed them. I was in Denver. You were fighting for their future. That's showing them something, too. She squeezed his hand. Stop beating yourself up. You're allowed to be imperfect. Cole smiled despite himself. When did you get so wise? Around the third time I nearly died having your babies. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the ranch, until Evelyn spoke again. We should expand the school. The territory is growing, more families moving in. We need a proper building, multiple teachers, maybe even a small library. That'll cost money. So we raise it, host fundraisers, apply for territorial grants, convince the wealthy ranchers that education benefits everyone. Her voice held that determined edge he knew better than to argue with. I've been teaching in that cramped building for 16 years. It's time for something better. All right, Cole said. We'll build your school. And they did. Over the next 2 years, Cole and Evelyn spearheaded a campaign that resulted in Sullivan's Bend Academy, a proper 3-room schoolhouse with a small library attached. Evelyn hired 2 additional teachers and started offering classes through 8th grade instead of stopping at 6th. Children from across the territory came to study, including several from families who couldn't afford tuition. Evelyn taught those students for free, funded by donations from ranchers like Cole, who understood that an educated population benefited everyone. The ranch continued growing too. Tommy took over more responsibilities as Cole's joints started aching with age and old injuries. Sarah surprised everyone by showing a gift for ranch management, keeping detailed books and negotiating better prices with buyers than Cole ever had. Jacob remained wild and unpredictable, but he had his father's natural way with horses and could gentle even the most skittish animals. Grace grew into a curious, stubborn girl who followed her older siblings everywhere and asked endless questions about everything she encountered. Life settled into a rhythm that felt permanent in a way Cole had stopped fearing and started trusting. Then, in the spring of 1898, Sheriff Briggs died in his sleep at age 68. The funeral drew people from 3 counties. Briggs had been a fixture in Sullivan's Bend for over 40 years, respected by nearly everyone who knew him. Cole stood beside Evelyn during the service, remembering the day Briggs had deputized him, the hunts they'd ridden together, the quiet wisdom the older man had shared over countless conversations. He was a good friend, Cole said to Martha Briggs afterward. He thought highly of you, too. The widow managed to smile through her tears. Always said you were the best deputy he ever swore in, even if you only wore the badge for a few months. The town needed a new sheriff. The position was voted on by the town council, and to Cole's surprise, they approached him about running. You've got the respect of the community, Councilman Davies said. You've proven yourself capable. And frankly, we need someone who can't be bought by the mining interests. I'm a rancher, Coles protested. I don't have time to... Tommy's running your ranch better than you do anymore, Davies interrupted with a smile. You know it's true. The boy's got a gift. Let him have it. The town needs you elsewhere. Cole discussed it with Evelyn that night. It's your decision, she said. But I think you'd be good at it. You've always had a strong sense of right and wrong, and you know what it's like to be on both sides of the law. I was never on the wrong side. You know what I mean. She gave him that look. Stop looking for reasons to say no. If you want to do it, do it. Cole ran unopposed and won the position easily. At 53 years old, he found himself back in a sheriff's uniform, pinning on a badge for the first time in over 2 decades. The work was different than he'd expected. Less about shootouts and manhunts, more about mediating disputes and keeping the peace in a town that was growing faster than its infrastructure could handle. Cole discovered he was good at it, applying the same patient determination he'd used building his ranch to solving the community's problems. He also discovered it gave him a different kind of purpose. The ranch had been about building something for his family. This was about protecting something for everyone. Years continued their steady march. Cole's hair went gray, then white. His hands developed arthritis that made cold mornings painful. But he kept working, kept showing up, kept doing what needed doing. Evelyn's school became a regional institution, drawing students from as far as Denver. Several of her former pupils went on to become doctors, lawyers, teachers themselves. She took quiet pride in every success, never boasting but glowing with satisfaction when former students wrote to tell her how she'd changed their lives. The children grew and scattered as children do. Tommy married a rancher's daughter and took over full operation of the Bennett spread. Sarah moved to Denver to study law, one of the first women admitted to the territorial bar. Jacob joined the cavalry and was stationed in Wyoming. Grace, the youngest, stayed closest to home, teaching alongside her mother at the academy. Cole and Evelyn became grandparents, then great-grandparents. The small house they'd built together remained their home, even as other family members built newer, larger homes on the expanding Bennett property. "We should move into the main house," Tommy suggested more than once. "You'd be more comfortable, closer to family." "We're comfortable here," Cole always replied. "Built this house with my own hands, plan to die in it." He was 73 when the heart attack came, sudden and massive, while he was tending his small garden behind the house. Evelyn found him collapsed among the tomato plants, still alive but barely. Dr. Hendricks was long dead, replaced by his nephew, who shook his head grimly after examining Cole. "I'm sorry, Evelyn. His heart's too damaged. Days, maybe a week at most." Cole lasted 5 days, conscious for most of them, surrounded by family who came from across the territory to say goodbye. He held court from his bed, offering advice to his children and grandchildren, sharing stories they'd heard 100 times but listened to anyway. On the last night, when everyone else had gone to bed, Evelyn sat beside him holding his hand. "Remember that first day?" Cole's voice was barely a whisper. "When I shot that rope?" "Every detail," Evelyn said, tears streaming down her face. "Best shot I ever made." "Best catch, too." Her voice broke on the familiar words. Cole smiled. "I love you. Always did. From that first moment." "I know. I love you too. Take care of them, the family, the town. You always were the strong one." "We were strong together," Evelyn corrected. "That's how it worked." Cole's breathing became labored. "Not scared," he managed. "Had a good run. Gotta love you. Gotta build something that matters." "You built everything that matters." He squeezed her hand one last time, then his eyes closed and his breathing slowed and stopped. Evelyn sat with him until dawn, holding his hand, remembering every moment of their 52 years together. The funeral was massive. People came from across the state to pay respects to the former sheriff, the successful rancher, the man who'd helped shape Sullivan's Bend from a rough mining town into a thriving community. But what Evelyn remembered most was the smaller stories people shared. The ranch hand Cole had helped through addiction, the young deputy he'd mentored into becoming the current sheriff, the countless quiet acts of kindness he'd performed without fanfare or expectation of recognition. "Your husband was a good man," people kept saying. Evelyn agreed, but she knew the truth was more complicated. Cole had been difficult and stubborn and emotionally closed off. He'd struggled with depression and fear and self-doubt until the day he died. But he'd also shown up every day and chosen love over fear. He'd built something permanent in a world that kept trying to scatter him. He'd learned to stay when every instinct told him to run. That was the real measure of the man. Not perfection, but persistence. Not fearlessness, but courage despite the fear. Evelyn lived another 4 years after Cole's death, staying active until the end. She wrote down their story, all of it, in neat teacher's handwriting that filled 3 notebooks. She wanted the grandchildren and great-grandchildren to know where they came from, what it had cost to build the life they now took for granted. On her last day, Grace found her sitting on the porch of the house Cole had built, staring at the mountains. "Mama, you all right?" "Fine, sweetheart, just thinking." Evelyn smiled. "About a rope and a gunshot and a scared girl who got a second chance she didn't think she deserved." "You deserved everything you got." "Maybe." Evelyn's eyes drifted to the small wooden bird Cole had carved for her 50 years ago, which she still kept on the windowsill. "Or maybe we just got lucky. Right person, right time, right choice to not give up." That night, Evelyn died peacefully in her sleep, in the bed she'd shared with Cole for half a century, in the house they'd built together with their own hands and stubborn determination. At her funeral, Tommy read from her final written words. "Love is not built in one grand moment. It is built every day, in loyalty and sacrifice and patience and courage and the choice to never let each other fall. It is built in showing up when you'd rather run, in staying when leaving would be easier, in fighting for something bigger than yourself because you believe it matters. Your grandfather was not a perfect man. Neither was I a perfect woman. We fought and failed and stumbled more times than I can count. But we never stopped choosing each other. We never stopped believing that what we were building was worth the cost. That's what I want you to remember. Not the easy moments or the grand gestures. Remember that love is work. Family is work. Building anything worth having is work. But it's the only work that really matters in the end. The notebooks were preserved, passed down through generations, becoming family legend. The story of the school teacher and the drifter, the rope and the gunshot, the impossible choice to stay when running would have been simpler. Years later, when Sullivan's Bend celebrated its centennial, someone proposed a memorial to the town's founders. They included Cole and Evelyn Bennett, acknowledging their contributions to education and law enforcement and community building. The memorial was simple, a stone marker on the site where Cole had shot that rope so many years ago, with a plaque that read, "Here, courage caught courage. Here, 2 lives changed direction. Here, the future began." Travelers still stop sometimes, reading the marker and wondering about the story behind it. Tour guides explain about the attack, the rescue, the trial, the legacy. But the real story lives in the descendants who still work the Bennett Ranch, in the students who pass through Sullivan's Bend Academy, in the small, quiet ways people choose to show up for each other when it would be easier to look away. Because that's what Cole and Evelyn really left behind. Not land or buildings or wealth, though they left all of those things. They left the example of what happens when you stop running from life and start building one instead. When you choose the hard work of staying over the temporary comfort of leaving. When you catch someone who's falling and let them catch you right back. The story was born from violence and fear and a moment of split-second bravery. But it became something else entirely. Something that whispered across generations. You can survive the worst thing that ever happened to you. You can rebuild from ashes. You can learn to trust again, love again, hope again. You just have to be brave enough to try. And stubborn enough to keep trying even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's the only legacy that really matters in the end. Not the moment you got knocked down, but the choice you made to stand back up. Not the fear you felt, but the courage you found despite it. Not the perfect life you imagined, but the imperfect, beautiful, hard-won life you actually built. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one gunshot that changed everything, and 50 years of smaller choices that made it matter. That's the story. That's the truth. And it's enough.